It's Easter. And there's all kinds of opinions about, did Easter really happen? Did it historically happen the way we are told in the Gospels? Or is it fallacy written by gospel writers who had a certain agenda or a certain group they needed to convince of something? I'm going to ask us all to suspend any notion or idea of your opinion of Easter today, or of Jesus, and whether something happened or didn't happen. Something did happen. But what exactly happened? We're not going to concern ourselves with the historical facts today. Here's a reality. To the Orthodox Christian mind, Jesus is the only Son of God, and the unattainable reality that we will never reach. To the dualist, I am forever separate from the infinite Christ essence and Christ presence. And we do not condemn that, but we celebrate the good that's been done by people who believe that way. To the cynic, Jesus is nothing more than the unattainable impossibility, improbability, forever questioning the story and the idea of Easter. And to the wounded heart, and there are many that come to church at Unity North, to the wounded heart, Jesus is somebody to run the other direction when you hear the name. Somebody to fear because it reawakens a wound from a teaching that had nothing to do with Jesus. From a teacher or teachers that had nothing to do with what the man stood for and what he taught. Today, and I believe in the unity movement. I can speak profoundly for the unity movement. Jesus is the magnificent example, the incredible demonstration of what is possible when we awaken to our true nature, individually and collectively. Jesus is the great example of what can be done and what is possible when we awaken to the magnificence and the Christ that is in, through, around, and as all creation. I'm going to invite you to sit with that idea and to suspend any arguing about theology and just examine the qualities that the man embodied. Let's not get caught in the history, but let's examine the qualities that he taught and the qualities that he demonstrated. What are those? We're going to do 4 today. Number 1, and foundational to what the man taught, is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Easter is about forgiveness. Easter is also about, number 2, oneness. Jesus demonstrated this. It's also about spiritual focus, keeping the eye single on what is spiritual, what is holy, and what is sacred, and not getting pulled off course. That is an Easter message. And then 4, it is kingdom awareness. He taught a lot about the kingdom of heaven. And it's an awareness that the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now, at the very center of your chest, at the very center of this gathering, at the very center of Mother Earth. So I find that the more adamant that we are about our perspective, about our faith and our belief system, about who Jesus was or who Jesus wasn't, the less we awaken the traits that he valued within our own hearts. So we're going to let go of opinions and speculations and leave that to the scholars. I am no scholar. Leave it to the historians. And we're going to deal with the main theme of Easter. What is that? Crucifixion to resurrection. Darkness to light. Human perspective, human view, and spiritual perspective, spiritual view. And what I want to call as our foundation for the rest of the talk is falling asleep to awakening. How many here have ever fallen asleep spiritually? Be honest with yourselves. And how many have ever had that magnificent moment of waking back up? That's resurrection. It is crucifixion. When we define ourselves by the human experience, we are crucifying our very nature, our very spiritual nature. And when we remember and we wake up, there is a resurrection. There is a greater awareness, a greater vibration that emerges. It is from loss to gain, from loss to remembering. So, as I said earlier, I'm going to be very unorthodox. I asked the presence and the spirit of the one, what am I supposed to say on Easter? And he said, give us the words of Jesus, not necessarily the words of the gospel writers. Tell the prodigal son story. That's not about Easter. But the more I sat with the prodigal son story, the more I realized the parallels of those qualities of forgiveness, those qualities of spiritual perspective, those qualities of oneness, and those qualities of kingdom awareness were absolutely a beautiful parallel. So perhaps we can set aside the disagreement about Easter, and let's just hear the story of the prodigal son. Let me remind you of this story. A father has two sons, and the younger one, who is very materialistic focused, very humanly focused, says, give me my inheritance. I want it, and I want it now. And I want to point something out in this story, that the father, that represents the presence of God, doesn't say, well, no, you shouldn't do that. No, maybe you should wait till you're a little bit older. The father says, here you go. It's yours. Kingdom awareness. We live in the kingdom, and all the abundance, all the health, all the goodness, all the magnificence we could ever desire is freely given to us. We cannot be separate from it. So, the young man goes off to Las Vegas. And he wastes his... Maybe not Las Vegas, Israel, I don't know. And he wastes all that money. So the one who was materially focused now has to define himself differently from a material standpoint, a sensory world experience. I have nothing, and I'm sleeping and eating with the pigs. And let me tell you, culturally, these people, that is the lowest of the low. You cannot get any lower than spending time with the pigs. And the most important line that happens in the prodigal son story, which is the story of Easter, the young man comes to himself. He comes to himself. That sounds like awakening to me. It sounds like an awareness of something that was within him that wasn't there before. This is the message of Easter. It's what you're being asked to do today. And what does the coming to oneself and awakening first entail? I got to forgive myself. I got to deal with the fact that I screwed up. I made a mistake. My eyes were off on the wrong direction, and I began to find something deeper and more powerful within me. But the journey isn't done. Then the long walk has to begin. Anybody ever taken that long walk to your mom or your dad? It's like, oh, geez. It takes a little bit of humility, doesn't it? First, I have to admit that I was wrong. I don't beat myself up. I'm not stained. I'm not broken. I made a human mistake. And I come to myself and say, now is my opportunity to fix the mistake, to wake up from the dream. And he comes home. Long story short, once again, is there condemnation? No. The father says, welcome home. He is met with open arms. He is met with love, a feast, new clothes, kingdom awareness. All that the kingdom is here and it is now. You had to come to yourself and wake up to that truth. And let us all notice that there was no need for an intermediary in that story. Oh, I have to have somebody pay a price for me. I have to have somebody stand in for me. I have to have somebody go to my Father for me because I'm so less than. It doesn't exist in the story. And it doesn't exist in the Easter story either, if you truly examine the words of the man that we celebrate on Easter. Now, there's another character in the Bible, in this particular story, that I really have resonated with. That's the other brother. Anybody ever been the other brother? It's not fair. This is not fair at all. Somebody's getting something that is my due. I should be the one in the spotlight. Why is somebody else taking the spotlight? We've all lived there. That's the human ego. The human ego that is saying, I want mine. Again, a materialistic focus. And he complains to the father. Once again, what does the father do or say? Wake up, you could have had a V8. He says, everything I have, everything I am has been here the whole time. One son came to himself. The other remained asleep. There was no awakening happening in the older son, just resentment and anger. And certainly no forgiveness, no kingdom awareness, and certainly no love lost with that brother who was taking his away. I call that hell. I call that hell, and I call the awakening that happening moving into a place of heaven. So this is Jesus' teaching. This is Jesus' words and teaching and story. But Jesus didn't teach one particular way of talking. He also did it through demonstration. So let's get into Easter. What are the qualities in Easter that are also in this prodigal son story that we can live, we can embody, we can nurture within us to rise to the highest and best place? I've already said it a number of times, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. Forgiveness. Let's go to Easter. Some of the last words spoken from the man's lips. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I would submit to you that resurrection, ascension, and rising to a higher level can never happen and will never happen until we find a place of forgiveness. Releasing others from the bonds and the chains that we have placed upon them. He told Peter, how often should we forgive? 7 times 70. 7 times 70. 7 just basically means do it till it's done. You forgive, and you forgive again and again and again until the job is complete and finished. And if somebody takes your shirt, give them your coat too. Or coat and shirt, hat, tie, I don't know what it was, but give them. Don't be holding the toxic energy of resentment. You will never ascend to any level of understanding of God, of relationship with God, without that ability to forgive. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, said, you want to heal the world of all the problems in the world? Spend 20 minutes every single day, sit on a cushion, and forgive everybody everything. I don't think this is an accident. Here we've got Jesus talking about forgiveness of self and others. Here he is demonstrating it on the cross, going through the dark night of the soul. The darkest thing I can even imagine, what I go through in my life is a hangnail in comparison. But he found a place of love. Ascension and awakening and resurrection only happens through forgiveness. Second thing that he demonstrated and he taught about, oneness. Oneness. When the prodigal son went home, there was a realization that he had never left his father's heart. He had never been absent from his father's consciousness and his mind. He had been thought about daily. We cannot be separate from that which we are, but we can believe it, can't we? We can fall asleep. And we don't realize the oneness, the gift of the oneness that is right there, right now. I want to point out that during the Easter story, the entire week that changed the world, and all the way up to the death and the resurrection, Jesus was in constant conversation with Source. He was in constant conversation with the One. He went away to talk, and he talked when he was not away. He was having dialogue about the human things that were really disturbing to him. He was a human being, and he got angry. He cried, he got afraid, he begged, please take this cup away from me. Now, whether that happened or not isn't important. I can meet him at a level of humanist. Anybody in the room ever have something you just didn't want to do? I don't want to take this long journey home because I'm going to have to be humble, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to be hurt. But as we said last week, the city of Jerusalem, which is the city of peace, is waiting for you to go through the dark night of the soul. But for God's sake, keep the conversation going. Keep the conversation going. Keep the conversation going. Oneness. Oneness with God. Third thing. I'm going to do the third and the fourth together. Spiritual focus. Spiritual focus. The young man in the prodigal son story had to come to himself. He had to return to a spiritual identity and not one that had anything to do with Las Vegas or the pigs. He returned to a spiritual focus. Time and time again, Jesus went away during this week that changed the world to maintain the spiritual focus. He said to us, be in the world, but don't be of it. Anybody here ever define yourself in the world? That's who you are, a body, a mind, experience, a relationship. a house, a car, clothes. You're not any of those things. Our job for resurrection to happen, for awakening to happen, must be a spiritual focus that I am more, that you are more. This relationship is just an effect of a deeper cause, a deeper reality, which is God. Don't let the world of effects turn you away from the higher power that is available when we awaken. He also told us if God is for you, nothing can be against you. Let's draw the parallel between the prodigal son story and crucifixion. Don't let embarrassment, don't let failure, don't let fear, despair, ridicule, attack, judgment, critique, or any kind of crucifixion in its many forms pull you away from what you know to be true about yourself. I think sometimes we celebrate these divine ideas on Sunday, and then Monday morning hits, and crucifixion happens, and we've forgotten. Stay awake, Jesus said to the apostles when he was preparing for his dark night of the soul. Couldn't you stay awake for me? Couldn't you stay awake for just a moment? The Christ of our being is challenging each and every one of us. Stay awake. When it gets ugly, stay awake. When the relationship crumbles, stay awake. When everything in the world feels like chaos and it's not working the way you think it should, the way you designed it, stay awake. Be awake, and then resurrection happens. As we come to ourselves, we don't go to something outside of ourselves. We don't go to the intermediary that's going to make it okay to pay a price for us. We pay the price by simply being humble enough to know, here's where I was, I screwed up. And then I took a journey, and I came home, and I remembered that I was never separate from God or home or my divine nature. That is the story of Easter. And all of a sudden, the entire human race is elevated to a higher being. Take a breath with me. And again, as you breathe out, let go of anything that does not serve you. I'm going to do a reading here. Tim's going to play a little music. This reading, and I don't usually like to read, but it's a long one, not too long. It's called The Awakening by Sonny Carroll. I did some editing, but this is the message I wanted to give you for Easter. This is the message of Easter that will be alive in you when you leave this space today. And as I read these words, if you feel so led to make it personal and pick pictures in your head of what you're going through as you're making your journey to home, as you're waking up from having fallen asleep, take it, live it, picture it, embrace it with open arms, and know that God is right there with you. A time comes in your life when you finally get it. When in the midst of all your fears and insanity, you stop dead in your tracks, and somewhere the still small voice inside your head cries out, enough, enough. Enough fighting and crying and struggling to hold on. The sobs subside. You blink back your tears, and you begin to look at the world through new eyes. This is your awakening. And you realize that it's time to stop waiting for somebody or something to change, or for happiness to come galloping over the next horizon. And you awaken to the truth that it's already here. You awaken to the fact that not everybody will always love or approve of you. And that's okay. You learn the importance of loving yourself, and a newfound confidence is born in the awakening. You stop complaining about the things that people did or they didn't do. And you learn that people don't always say what they mean or mean what they say, and that it's not always about you. And in the process, an awakening of safety and security and oneness is born of self-reliance. Because you have a kingdom awareness, and you have a spiritual focus. You stop pointing fingers, and you begin to accept people as they are, overlooking shortcomings and frailties. And in the process, a deep sense of peace and home is born. You sift through the junk that you have been fed about how you should behave, or how you should look, or how you should feel, or how you should live, or whom you should love. and you awaken. And you open to new worlds and different points of view, and you begin to redefine yourself, who you are, and what you truly stand for. You learn the difference between wanting and needing, and discard the dogmas, and learn to go with your gut, with your intuition. And you learn that it's truly in giving that you will receive. There is no power and glory in creating and contributing, and that there is power in glory in creating and contributing. And you stop maneuvering through life merely as a consumer. You awaken to the truth that honesty, integrity, spirituality, and forgiveness are not outdated ideals of a bygone religion or a bygone era, but they are the very mortar that holds together the foundation upon which life, all of life, is built. And the only thing the world needs to be saved from is our own ego. And we learn to distinguish between guilt and responsibility. And that the only cross to bear is the one that we choose to carry. Then we learn how to love, how to truly love. And we look at relationships as they really are and not as we would have them be. And we learn that alone does not mean lonely. And we learn that for the most part in life, you get what you believe you deserve. And that much of life is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you awaken from your sleep. You learn that anything worth achieving is worth working for, and that wishing for something to happen is different from working towards making it happen. You put your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul behind the vision, and don't let anybody pull you off course. And you learn that in order to achieve success, you need direction. You need discipline, and you need perseverance. And you learn that nobody can do it all alone, and that it is absolutely okay to ask for help. You learn that the only thing you must truly fear is the great robber baron of all time, fear. And you step right into it, and you step right through it as you take that long walk home. Because you know that whatever happens, you can handle it. Because the Father and I are one. You and the Father, the essence, the light, the love, the goodness are one. And you learn that life isn't always fair, and that sometimes bad things happen to good people. You learn that God is not punishing you or failing to answer your prayers. It's just life happening, and you deal with it. You learn that negative feelings must be understood and redirected. And you admit when you are wrong, and you build bridges instead of walls. And you learn to be thankful and to take comfort in the simple things that most people take for granted. This is your awakening. And slowly, you take full responsibility for your life. And you make yourself a promise to never, ever betray the Christ of your being. To never betray the divine essence of who you are. And then finally, with courage in your heart and the awareness that you and God are one, and that you have never been separate from the kingdom, you take a deep breath and you begin to design the life that you want to live. This is your awakening. This is your coming home. This is your resurrection. This is your Easter. My counsel tells me to share a personal story when I speak. And God said, sing your personal story. I have lived within the darkness, felt the emptiness of night, known the sting of bitter cold, the wounds of endless fights. But now I've found there's more within me than any power of this life. Oh, I'm caught up in God's fire, and I'm reaching for God's love. Yes, I have traveled to the bottom, the pit of my despair, and found a strong and loving God, a love beyond compare. And now I'm lifted so much higher than any power of this life. My spirit has found heaven, and I'm living in God's light. And now I rise, yes, now I live beyond the pain, beyond the fear, for God has shown me to the light of what's possible. So now I see that I'm set free. And now I soar. Yes, now I fly. There are no chains to tie me down. I stand on higher ground, for now I live, and now I grow. Yes, now I fly, for now I know that I shall live, and I shall grow. For now I rise, I rise. For now I live. Yes, now I fly. For now I rise. I rise. I rise. Thank you.